And now I'm talking to Mary Rose Burke from Ibec. Mary, how's it going?
Not too bad.
Mary Rose, I would think that most people in Ireland know who Ibec are. Before we talk about your latest All-Ireland report, could you just remind our listeners of who Ibec are and the work that you do on a day-to-day and annual basis, please?
Yeah, Ibec is a membership organisation that represents the needs of business across the country. That's small and medium, right up to multinationals across all sectors and all geographies. We work closely with government to make sure that we have business-friendly policies that help us create jobs and economic growth in the country.
Okay, that's great. We are here today to talk about a major report you launched this week. I read about it on the Fora website and you were quoted in the article on it. Could you just tell our listeners what is this report you've launched, and could you tell us your rationale for launching the report, please?
Yeah, our report that we launched is a very interesting initiative between Ibec and CBI in Northern Ireland, the business representative group there. The report is called Connected, a prosperous island of 10 million people. So in it we look at the infrastructure needs for maybe mid-century, 2040 onwards. For a population of 10 million people, what is the road network primarily that is needed to underpin prosperous, peaceful cooperation and economic growth on the island? The basic premise is during the Celtic Tiger years we built out a very impressive motorway system, but primarily that links Cork, Limerick, Galway to Dublin. So it's all focused on Dublin. But what we haven't done is connect, for instance, Cork, Limerick and Galway to each other. Similarly, we see in Northern Ireland the connection between Belfast as a centre of economic growth and, we'll say, Derry in the northwest. The infrastructure links there are not fit for purpose either. Our premise is that we need a big vision for this population of 10 million by mid-century, and we should complete a sea ring road that would go from Belfast across to Derry, down through Donegal, connect up Sligo, Galway, Limerick, Cork, Waterford, Wexford, so that we are sharing the benefits of economic growth, that we're connecting people, community and businesses and creating a prosperous island for everybody.
Would you be concerned that with the growth of Dublin over the last few decades, I think there are nearly 1/3 of the people in the state living in Dublin, and if you take a Dublin and the surrounding counties, there's probably half of the country. Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, when you look internationally, the dependence of the economy in the Republic of Ireland is about over 40% of our economic activity is in the Greater Dublin region. That is completely unbalanced, and we hear this from the businesses around the country, particularly on the western seaboard. When you look to other countries where we would say maybe that the southwest of England around the London area is disproportionate, that's still less than 20% of their economic activity. So the over-reliance on Dublin and in the north on Belfast for economic growth is not good for the island economy as a whole, but it also limits the opportunities for economic growth, job creation in other areas when you have this Dublin-centric thinking. Our proposal is not to in any way limit the economic growth in Dublin. It is to share economic growth and economic opportunities across the country, and also to enable Dublin to continue to be the economic powerhouse that it is. This is around interurban connectivity, but also linking to better connectivity in our cities, making them smart, livable, competitive cities. So linking up with whatever the infrastructure, be it bikes or hire cars, taxis, buses, public transport in the cities, so that it's easier to get around the country, but within the cities that is also easier to get around. This would make it a much more attractive place to live, to work and to invest, and therefore to attract and create more jobs.
Yeah, I saw in the article on Fora, the website, you have a map of Ireland and the proposed roads. It looks great, you know. I've thought for several years now that the next big motorway or dual carriageway project that we have to do in this country is the road from the south to Letterkenny. I was delighted to hear of this proposal of yours to build roads across the island of Ireland, including to and from Letterkenny. Could you tell me if the motorway or dual carriageway to Letterkenny is top of the list as regards priorities? And could you tell me what are your priorities in general on this proposal?
Well, our vision is for a connected future. and we've mapped out what that would look like. And we've also looked in the past, did we ever have a connected island? And we did have a very comprehensive railway network at one stage. We've looked at that and said, what would the modern equivalent be? And our proposal would mean that about 85% of the population would be within 10 kilometres of the envisaged network. We think that will give benefits to everybody across the country. The phasing of how the infrastructure would be built will be influenced by a lot of other policy issues and around political considerations as well. There are some priorities that we've already laid out in other Ibec and in other CBI documents. For instance, the connectivity between Belfast and Derry, but also the connectivity on this side with the proposed A5 to make sure that we'd open up the northwest. That would be a priority area. We also think it's scandalous that our second and third cities, so Cork and Limerick, are not connected. So we could argue about the priorities. Once they're all part of a joined up piece and every piece is part of that jigsaw, we understand the priorities will be informed by different considerations. But certainly opening up the northwest and connecting our second and third cities would be key to the project.
Could you tell me how much your proposals, if put into operation, would cost? And could you tell us how optimistic you are that the government in Ireland and indeed the Northern Ireland executive might adopt the proposals as a plan? And have you spoken to Shane Ross, the Minister for Minister for Transport, or any other government ministers about your proposals?
We have worked with stakeholders across our membership, north and south, on this, and we have developed some funding models there. It will need to be a blend of public and private investment to create this visionary connected island. We do need to see that level of commitment. We understand the current constraints on governments. However, this is a phased project over about 20 years. So we need to be innovative in how we both finance it and also how we fund it in the longer term. The institutional investors do see infrastructure as a very attractive asset class. So we don't envisage difficulty in accessing the finance to develop this or longer term. We're going to have to be innovative in the ways in which it's paid for in the long term. But currently, if you move people around the island, be it in a private car, in a taxi or on a bus, a train, however, there is a fee. So if we go on the Dart or the Lewis or the train, everybody pays to do that. We pay to move people. We also pay to move goods, be it courier or postal or whatever. So the concept of paying to move from A to B is well embedded. We also have motor taxation that could be looked at in how is it used. And we've also seen the success of the toll roads. Where we've built motorways in the past, people may not like the idea of a toll road, but when they're in place, people tend to use the road and pay. We do not see people avoiding and using lesser quality roads to avoid a toll. So we're confident with a mix of both public and private funding that we will be able to afford this. The overall cost, when we look at it, considering that half of this network is already built, we're talking about completing out the network, the cost we would estimate at around €12 billion. That's a big number, but it is phased over a 20-year construction period. But we've also looked to say, what does that actually mean? On an island of 10 million people, you know, if you say 40% of those would be working, which is, you know, we're at around 43% now. So that would, just as a rule of thumb, say 40% working. We're talking at, you know, less than €2 a week per working person in the country. So just to give a sense of the affordability of it. Very much affordable, but crucially there are some real costs if we don't do this. There's jobs that won't be created, there's businesses that won't flourish, and there's communities that won't be connected if we don't build this network. The big thing here is around vision and ambition and the understanding that we need to do this to compete internationally. This will not make us more attractive necessarily than other places. Some of this is playing catch up with the comprehensive networks that other countries have.
Okay, finally, Mary Rose, in summary, what is your final message to our listeners and to the government in Ireland and Northern Ireland Executive on the value of what you and the CBI propose in this report? And could you tell us how people can find out more information about it?
Yeah, well, the document is available on our website, so the information is freely available, and we would encourage people to look at it. We've worked with people in all sectors and across the country, and there's been a lot of inputs into this. We see this as a blueprint for the infrastructure of the future, connecting people, connecting places, connecting communities that will facilitate economic growth, will facilitate new job creation, but it's also the basic building block that allows other strategic infrastructure to be built. If you consider health infrastructure, people's concern is not how many miles away a particular hospital may be. Their concern is how long it takes them to get there. So once you have a very modern and competitive road network, it makes moving around the island a completely different proposition, and that allows us to make different ambitious investments in other strategic infrastructure as well.
Okay, Mary Rose, thanks very much.
Thank you.